My video ended midway through this reading. I was reading at Mountain. I will just continue here. Apologize. Not having a body means there is no self. Walking in the garden, not seeing a person means there are no others. Ordinary people discriminate between self and others, inside and outside, because they have consciousness. When there is consciousness, there is self. When there is self, there are others. When there are self and others, one doesn't know where to stop. If one can stop at the back, then the consciousness of self and others sublimates. When there is no consciousness of self and others, then the human mentality leaves and the mind of Tao arrives. There is only one truth. Act and rest according to truth. In repose, you preserve correctness. Stillness is accomplished by realizing truth, not by the body. Resting in the proper place, inwardly you are unaware of having a body. In action, you act correctly, acting on the truth, not in obedience to other people. Stopping in the proper place, outwardly you do not mind other people. With no self or others, having been able to stop inside, you can also stop outside. Active or still according to the time, inwardly and outwardly in communion with the Tao. Both action and stillness come forth from mindlessness. Through this one principle, all faults can be eliminated. If learners can apply their efforts to this double stilling, stopping in the proper place without wavering, then they will finish all tasks by this one attainment. Why worry that the gold elixir won't form or the great Tao will not be realized? Next, we will look at our changing lines 1 and 6, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all of the other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 1 has the general context inklings, just beginning to sense what could be involved or needed. Changing line 6 has the general context beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Changing line 1 of our primary hexagram 36, concealment of illumination. Concealing illumination in flight, letting the wings hang down. A superior man on a journey not eating for 3 days has a place to go. The master is criticized. Explanation. In the beginning of a concealment of illumination, though there is no manifest form of injury, there is already the imminence of injury. One should quickly withdraw the fire so as to avoid its harm. This may be represented as like concealing illumination in flight, letting the wings hang down. Or in terms of a person, a superior man on a journey not eating for 3 days has a place to go. Flying with the wings down, traveling without eating, understanding when to withdraw and hastening to do so. Nevertheless, the master is criticized, because withdrawing the fire is something that is done after the solidification of the spiritual embryo. There is naturally real fire, and one doesn't use artificial fire, and so one appears to be ignorant and inarticulate, which people dislike. So there is unavoidable criticism. However, though there be slander and criticism, one may be hurt outwardly, but one is not hurt inwardly. This is withdrawing the fire before injury. Changing line 6. The darkness of non-understanding, first ascending to heaven, then descending into the earth. Explanation. If one does not understand the firing process and only knows how to go along using illumination, and does not know how to reverse and withdraw illumination, this is reverting to darkness by not understanding. Reverting to darkness by not understanding is without benefit. and in fact harmful. One brings misfortune on oneself. This is like first ascending to heaven, advancing illumination, then descending into earth, damaging illumination. The gold elixir is gained and then lost, and all the effort that has gone before is wasted. This is not knowing to withdraw the fire, so that illumination winds up damaged. Nurturing the fire is nurturing illumination. Withdrawing the fire is concealing illumination. When illumination is concealed and stored within, fire returns to its reality. Open awareness without obscurity, eventually to become sublimated, returning to formlessness. But it is necessary to know the firing process of withdrawing the fire to nurture illumination. If you do not know the process, not only will you be unable to nurture illumination, you will also obscure illumination. This too is injury of illumination. How can this accomplish anything? Next, we will look at the commentary section for each of our hexagrams. 36, concealment of illumination. Earth above, fire below. Light enters into the earth, illumination is concealed. Thus do superior people deal with the masses, acting unobtrusively while in fact illumined. Concealment of illumination means being illumined but concealing it. Above is earth, below is fire, associated with the sun. This is light entering into the earth. When light enters into the earth, there is light within darkness. This is the image of concealment of illumination. What superior people see in this is that when practitioners of the Tao are among the masses, if they use their illumination too much, they will startle the ignorant and amaze the worldly, easily bringing on abuse and slander. Therefore, superior people deal with the masses by acting unobtrusively, even though they are in fact illumined. Dealing with the masses means facing the unenlightened with enlightenment. Acting unobtrusively means concealing enlightenment and nurturing it. The beings produced by heaven and earth are not equal. The masses of people are not equal in terms of intelligence. There is a mixture of aberration and sanity, and everyone is an individual. How can every individual be totally good? Acting unobtrusively in dealing with people means dealing with them on their own terms, seeing the totality as one organism. This means having a quality of breadth like that of the earth, which supports everything and accepts everything, being responsive to everything in an adaptive way. But acting unobtrusively does not mean that one does not use illumination at all. It means that one is outwardly unnoticeable but free from inward obscurity, so there is inner light within outer darkness. One is able to distinguish in every case who is wise and who is foolish, who is aberrated and who is sane. But though one harmonizes with others, one is not influenced, and though one associates with others, one does not become clannish. One's patterns of activity and passivity, absence and presence are indiscernible to others. One is like the sun, which is bright when it rises, but also bright in secret when it is set. This is what is meant by the saying that a great hermit may well live in the city. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 52, mountain. Mountain above, mountain below. Joining mountains. Thus do superior people think without leaving their place. Mountains symbolize stability. With mountain above and below, one mountain joins another, and so on, so that 1,000 mountains, 10,000 mountains present a single image of stability. What superior people see in this is that the inherent goodness in people is the place wherein people are human, where they should remain all their lives and never leave for a moment. Therefore, they emulate the image of joining mountains and think without leaving their place. In both social and spiritual life, investigating truth and distinguishing right from wrong, people cannot dispense with thought. But if the thought is right, then they are in their place, while if the thought is wrong, they are out of place. It is important that all thoughts stop in their proper place and do not lose their original reality. If practitioners of the Tao are able to think in their place, the mind of Tao is ever present and the human mentality is forever quiescent. No external objects can influence them, so there is no harm to thought. Do-nothing quietists may say they forget about things and forget about their own bodies, not thinking at all, but this has nothing to do with the Tao of nature and life of body and mind, and is also one form of being out of place. Being in place means being immutable, stabilized in the right way. Thought that is properly stabilized encompasses all reason and responds to all things. Though one thing all day, never being out of place, it is as though there were no thought. Indeed, when you know the One, all tasks are done. If you do not know the One, then thought is out of place. How many students in the world know the One? Next, we will look at James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, which I've left links to in the description box below. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself and has synthesized several I Ching commentaries into one helpful place. And he leaves helpful editor's notes and the notes and paraphrases at the end, which sum the reading up. His portion of it that we'll be reading. And he leaves helpful quotes in here, like things from Carl Jung and the Kabbalah. He calls Hexagram 36 Clouded Perception. Other titles might be Darkening of the Light, the symbol of the appearance of clear intelligence wounded, Injury, Wounding of the Bright, Brightness Hiding, Calling Pheasant, the Darkened Light, Concealment of Illumination, Injury of Illumination, Light Obliterated, Intelligence Unappreciated, Censorship, Hiding One's Light, The Dark Night of the Soul, Ignorance. A quote from D.F. Hook, not necessarily as bad as it sounds, may just mean being restricted or restricting yourself. For some reason, I get the image of the Hermit card in the tarot. Judgment, leg. Under the conditions of clouded perception, be aware of the difficulty of your position and maintain firm correctness. Wilhelm/Baines, darkening of the light. In adversity, it furthers one to be persevering. Blofeld, darkening of the light. Righteous persistence in the face of difficulty brings reward. Lu, darkening of the light. It benefits one to carry on through hard times. Ritzema/Karcher, brightness hiding. Harvesting drudgery trial. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of intelligence hidden or harmed. It emphasizes that deliberately concealing your light by entering what is beneath you is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to hide your brightness. Slothnacy, calling pheasant, beneficial to determine about difficulty. Cleary 2, when illumination is damaged, it is beneficial to be upright in difficulty. Wu, light obliterated indicates that it is advantageous to be persevering in time of danger. The image, leg. The sun enters the earth, the image of clouded perception. The superior man manages his subordinates and shows his intelligence by keeping it hidden. Wilhelm/Baines, the light has sunk into the earth, the image of darkening of the light. Thus does the superior man live with the great mass. He veils his light, yet still shines. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes light hidden within the earth. In governing the people, the superior man, though taking care to conceal his light, nevertheless shines. Lu, the sun sinking under the earth symbolizes the darkening of the light. In approaching the people, the superior man veils his brightness, yet still has glory. Ritsuma/Karcher, brightness entering earth's center, brightness hiding. A Chansu, or chief sun or superior person, uses supervising the crowds to avail of darkening and also brightening. Cleary 1, light enters into the earth, illumination is concealed. Thus do superior people deal with the masses, acting unobtrusively while in fact illuminated. When practitioners of the Tao are among the masses, if they use their illumination too much, they will startle the ignorant and amaze the worldly, easily bringing on abuse and slander. Cleary 2, illumination goes underground. In concealment of illumination, in dealing with the masses, true leaders act unobtrusively while in fact being illuminated. What sages learn is to become daily more illumined, unbeknownst to others. Wu, the light enters the earth, this is light obliterated. Thus the Junsi, or chief sun or superior person, uses the spirit of dimness in place of brightness to administer affairs of the populace. By dimming his internal strength, he would make people feel that he is one of them. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, the image of brightness entering into the midst of the earth suggests clarity that has been wounded or obscured. The lower trigram shows clarity, the upper docility. King Wen had both of these qualities, yet he was involved in great difficulties. The individual concerned should obscure his brightness. Thus was Count Qi able to correctly maintain his mind and intent amidst the difficulties of his situation. Leg. This hexagram shows an able officer going forth in the service of his country, notwithstanding the occupancy of the throne by a weak and unsympathetic ruler. Hence the name clouded perception or intelligence wounded, that is, injured and oppressed. The lesson of the figure is to show how such an officer will conduct himself and maintain his purpose. King Wen was not of the line of Shang. Though opposed and persecuted by its sovereign, he could pursue his own course, till his line came in the end to supersede the other. It could not be so with the Count of Qi, who was a member of the House of Shang, or Shang. He could do nothing that would help on its downfall. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Recognize a difficult situation and use your willpower to cope with its restrictions. The superior man manages the situation by subduing his need to speculate, meddle, or call attention to himself. Alternate. When in the presence of arrogance, the wise man plays the fool. The 35th hexagram shows the trigram of clarity progressing over the earth, an image of advancing awareness. The 36th hexagram is the inverse of this. It shows the trigram of clarity swallowed up by the earth. If the image of advance of consciousness symbolizes noon, when the sun is at the mid-heaven, then clouded perception symbolizes midnight, when the sun is at the imum koli, or under sky. It is a time of maximum darkness, maximum ignorance, a time when the dark forces of the unconscious are at their strongest. We are reminded of the dark night of the soul, an inescapable and inevitable phase of the work. A quote from St. John of the Cross. When at length they have practiced themselves for some time in the journey of virtue, persevering in meditation and prayer, wherein with the suavity and relish they have found, they have become detached from worldly things and acquired some spiritual strength in God, so as to be able to curb the creature appetites and in some small degree suffer for God some slight load and dryness, without turning back at the crucial moment, when, to their thinking, they are proceeding in these spiritual exercises to their entire satisfaction and delight, and when the sun of divine favors seems to them to shine most radiantly upon them, God darkens all this light and shuts the door and fountain of the sweet spiritual water, which they were wont to drink in God as often and as long as they chose. And thus He leaves them in darkness so profound that they know not whither to direct the sense of the imagination and speculations of the mind. The dark night of the soul is the universal experience of everyone who follows the way beyond the tried and true paths of the spiritual dilettante. It is an archetypal filter for determining the survival of the fittest in psychic evolution. For those who have entered this phase of the work, it is good to remember that no one is given a test that they can't pass if they sincerely want to. The situation in line 5 of this hexagram means little to one who is unacquainted with Chinese history. In its essence, the story of Count Qi concerns a superior man who is imprisoned by an evil emperor. The only way that he could survive this dark time was to feign insanity. Thus, the message in the image counsels us to show our intelligence by concealing it. There is a wide range of applications for this rule, and perhaps Lao Tzu gives us the best paraphrase of the idea in his famous aphorism: "He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know." In terms of the work, this can mean that one must firmly understand that there are some things which cannot be shared with just anyone. Inner work is very fragile until it has had time to crystallize. And to expose its truths to the harsh light of unsophisticated intellect is to risk severe damage to the process of individuation. A quote from M.L. von Franz in The Feminine in Fairy Tales: "One must not tell people of things they cannot grasp. There are mysteries that cannot be shared with everybody. Some things can be told to no one, and a secret told to a wrong person is destructive and even irresponsible." This hexagram can symbolize many situations, but sometimes it is a suggestion that you are ignorant or in the dark about the true state of affairs now prevailing. In our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all, James Dekorne calls keeping still. Other titles might be mountain, the symbol of checking and stopping, desisting, stilling, stillness, stoppage, bound, reposing, resting, meditation, non-action, stopping, arresting movement. A quote from D.F. Hook refers to meditation and yoga. So this reminds me of the Four of Swords tarot card. Judgment, leg. When his repose is like the back and he loses all consciousness of self, when he walks in his courtyard and does not see the people, there will be no error. Ritsuma/Karcher, bound, one's back, not catching one's individuality, moving one's chambers, not visualizing one's people without fault. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of confronting a boundary or obstacle. It emphasizes that stopping and acknowledging the limit, the action of bound, is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time you are told to stop. The image, leg. The image of one mountain atop another forms keeping still. The superior man, in accordance with this, does not allow his thoughts to go beyond the duties of his immediate circumstances. Ritsuma/Karcher, joined mountains, bound. A Chun Tzu uses pondering, or chief son or superior person, not to issue forth from one's situation. Wu, one mountain overlapping another makes stoppage. Thus the Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, does not contemplate things beyond his position. Confucius said, if you do not hold an office, do not give counsels on its administration. What he meant is not to volunteer counsels freely. On the other hand, if you are requested, then give the best you can. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, keeping still means stopping. One rests when it is time to rest, and acts when it is time to act. When action and rest occur at the proper times, one's behavior is enlightened. Keeping his back still, he rests in his proper place. The upper and lower lines of the hexagram all mirror each other, but are without any interaction. Hence it is said that he has no consciousness of ego. He does not see the persons in his courtyard, and there will be no error. Leg. 2 trigrams symbolizing mountain make up the hexagram of keeping still. Mountains rise up grandly from the surface of the earth, their huge masses resting on it in quiet and solemn majesty. They are barriers to the onward progress of the traveler. The attributes of this hexagram are both resting and arresting. It denotes the characteristic of resting in what is right in principle, right on the widest possible scale, in the absolute conception of the mind, and in every possible situation in which a man can be placed. As in hexagram number 31, initiative, the symbolism is taken from the different parts of the human body. According to the Concealment editors, the second sentence in the image should be translated, "The superior man, in consequence with this, thinks anxiously how he shall not go beyond the duties of his position." Notes and paraphrases, judgment. Wipe out imagination. Check desire. Extinguish appetite. Keep the ruling faculty in its own power. Quote from Marcus Aurelius. The superior man eliminates all distraction and concentrates on the matter at hand. A large portion of the work consists of nothing more than the will to keep still. Anyone who has ever tried it can attest that keeping still, or doing nothing, is probably the most difficult thing that a human can be asked to do. We are an ever-flowing fountain of restless desire. The senses are mindlessly programmed to encounter their objects, and when we prevent them from doing this, a great commotion occurs in the psyche. We are so accustomed to feeling our desires, drives, instincts, and appetites as integral to our awareness that we are seldom conscious of the fact that they are actually autonomous forces, as separate from the ego or choice-making complex as we are from other people, creatures, or objects in the physical world. Try controlling an ingrained habit such as smoking and observe how difficult it is to impose your will upon it. Who controls whom? A quote from Paracelsus in De Viribus Memborum. The power of sight does not come from the eye. The power to hear does not come from the ear, nor the power to feel from the nerves. But it is the spirit of man that sees through the eye and hears with the ear and feels by means of the nerves. Wisdom and reason and thought are not contained in the brain, but they belong to the invisible and universal spirit which feels through the heart and thinks by means of the brain. All these powers are contained in the invisible universe and become manifest through material organs, and the material organs are their representatives and modify their mode of manifestation according to their material construction, because a perfect manifestation of power can only take place in a perfectly constructed organ, and if the organ is faulty, the manifestation will be imperfect, but not the original power defective. The ego has only one legitimate function, to make choices. It is the switchboard in the psyche which directs where the energy of the instinctual powers shall go. If these autonomous forces are stronger than the will of the ego, they soon learn to get their way as often as possible. The main difference between an inferior and a superior man is that the latter has learned to control and direct his energies for a higher purpose. One of the best ways to acquire this ability is to learn the lessons inherent within keeping still. A quote from Roberto Osseagoli in Psychosynthesis. Psychoanalysis has demonstrated that the power of these images and complexes lies chiefly in the fact that we are unconscious of them, that we do not recognize them as such. When they are unmasked, understood, and resolved into their elements, they often cease to obsess us. In any case, we are then much better able to defend ourselves against them. The lines of the upper and lower trigrams are mirror images of each other, yet not one of them has a proper correlate. They don't connect with each other. This suggests the separation of the senses from their objects. For example, eyeballs are sensory receptors designed for the perception of light and form. Close your eyes and they are prevented from contacting the phenomena they were created to perceive. That the psychic entities attached to this desire to perceive phenomena might resist restriction is a foregone conclusion, but the ego has control over the eyelids, or should have. Not seeing the people in one's own courtyard means that one ignores one's autonomous impulses. Regulation of the psyche's autonomous manifestations in accordance with the will of the self is for the purpose of gaining a controlling influence over one's karma. As stated herein many times, you, as ego, are nothing more than a tool created by the self for the direction of its own destiny. A quote from Robert Svoboda in Agora 3, The Law of Karma. Both karma theory and quantum mechanics refuse to accept that observers can exist independent of the systems they observe. Spiritual science goes so far as to take the observer's own internal universe as its states as its experimental field. For it is within that field that karma is produced and stored. The matter from which we and our obstructions are created includes both the dense physical material from which our bodies are built and the thoughts, attitudes, and emotions that make up our minds. Tantric practice is karmic engineering within this field of name and form, orchestration of substance and action into result. First, you direct new causes against previous effects to nullify adverse influences on your awareness. Then you unleash yet further actions to negate the influence of the nullifying actions. How any ego could tackle such responsibilities with any hope of progress is impossible to imagine without the direction of the self. Keeping still certainly has its own karmic consequences, but when the not choosing implied in this hexagram is done in accordance with the self's will and intent, the results slowly lead to ever higher levels of awareness, eventually into realms beyond the physical. That is what the work is all about. Any other choice is to lock ourselves into a continuous round of birth and death in physical manifestation. The quote from Rabbi David Cooper in God is a Verb, the Kabbalists teach that everything we do stirs up a corresponding energy in other realms of reality. Actions, words, or thoughts set up reverberations in the universe. The universe unfolds from moment to moment as a function of all the variables leading up to that moment. When we remain cognizant of this mystical system, we are careful about what we do, say, or even think, for we know that everything is interdependent. We know that a seemingly insignificant gesture could have weighty consequences. Suggestions for meditation. Notice that every line of this hexagram except the last deals with an inherent challenge involved in the discipline required to keep still. Compare the lines in keeping still with similar lines in hexagram 31, initiative. We next will take a look at our changing lines 1 and 6 of our primary hexagram 36, Concealment of Illumination. Our changing lines are the most focused part of the reading. They take precedence over all other elements, and they put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here's the places you may find yourself. Changing line 1 has the general context, inklings, just beginning to sense what could be involved or needed. Changing line 6 has the general context, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Want to say fuck around and find out. Line 1, hexagram 36, clouded perception. Leg. The first line dynamic shows its subject with clouded perception, flying but with drooping wings. When the superior man is about his business, he may go for 3 days without eating. Wherever he goes, the people there may speak derisively of him. Wilhelm/Bain's darkening of the light during flight. He lowers his wings. The superior man does not eat for 3 days on his wanderings, but he has somewhere to go. The host has occasion to gossip about him. Blofeld, failure of the light during his progress through the sky caused him to lower his wings. When busy with affairs, the superior man may go without food for 3 days on end. So intent is So intent is he on reaching his goal. But his Lord will have